Hello, everyone. I just want to thank you we have been able to just garner so great things and so many foundational opportunities to meet people, to discuss the awesome things that are happening, not only in this community, but across the nation. And this is my genuine and sincere pleasure to introduce Annelle Whitt. Annelle Whitt started a foundation and it's based on beauty. Annelle, will you tell us a bit about the Jod Foundation?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing me this time with you. So I'm really excited to be here. So the James and Annelle Whitt Entrepreneur Development Foundation was started in 2021.
Okay.
And how the foundation was started, my husband transitioned in 2021 after a long battle with cancer. And at the time, he was the consultant with the city as their first supply diversity person. So he really garnered helping minority and women-owned businesses get started here in Columbia. And how that really started was when the city wanted to really increase minority and women-owned businesses here in Columbia, specifically around minority-owned businesses. And at the time, when my husband was a consultant for them, he told them, if you want to really establish minority-owned businesses, you first have to go back and address what is a perceived harm, not even perceived, because it was a real harm.
It was real.
That happened as a result of urban renewal related to the Sharp End Business District. So like many, like I know everyone has heard of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Everybody's heard of Black Wall Street. Well, there was Black Wall Streets all over the country. Maybe not to that level of Tulsa, Oklahoma, but there was thriving Black business community all over the country. Columbia had one right here on Walnut Street between 5th and 6th Street, which is where the post office sits and where Ready sits. If you go on Walnut Street, right in front of Ready, you will see the first marker, which is the Sharp End marker. So my husband believed that there are still generations of folks whose families own businesses on Walnut Street in the Sharp End.
Can we just talk about why they called it the Sharp End?
Okay, so there's several stories about this. There's several stories about it. So one of the things that I'm very fortunate is that I do. I'm one of the people who do the African American Heritage Trail, which is here in Columbia. It's about 22 markers here throughout. So the first one was the Sharp End. So the story about the Sharp End. There's three.
Oh,
there's three.
I'm excited.
There's three. I don't want to call them urban myths, but there are three stories about how it got its name. So the first story is that, so we're talking about the Sharp End business existed between the late 1800s all the way through about the early 1960s, with urban renewal started around 57, 58, and kind of ended in like 1960 is when it no longer existed. They moved businesses out of this area to other areas. But it after a couple of years after that, it ceased to exist. So three reasons why it's called the Sharp End. One story is, which I believe this is the true reason, because it happens all over the country. So the Sharp End Business District was a thriving, not only business district, but it was a thriving social space for African Americans to come. So they had pool halls, they had dance halls, they had taxi cabs, they had restaurants. So it was a thriving social district. So the way the story goes is that when you came down to the Sharp End Business District, you had to be sharp. So the women would have their dresses, they would have their hats. We're talking like the 30s, 40s, up to the 60s. Well, women were still wearing gloves and hats, and they would have on their finest. And because when you came down, they were going to shop down here. They were going to socialize. They want to see different people throughout the community. So when you came down here, you were dressed properly. The men would wear their fedoras. They would have their suits on, their shoes shine. They would be sharp. So therein, it was called the Sharp End.
That's my
favorite. Because you had to be sharp when you got here. So that's one of the stories. Now, another thing about the Sharp End, you could not, it was a rite of passage for you to come down here before you were 18. So you could not come down to the Sharp End Business unless you were accompanied by an adult. And if you're down here for a reason. And many times if you had to come down for something, you would go all the way around 5th and 6th Street, come around, because you could not come down Sharp End because it's not for kids. You didn't come down here. So back in the day when we listened,
Yes.
and if you came down to Sharp End, everybody knew everybody. So you were down at the Sharp End Business District and somebody saw you. They said, "Isn't your mama Annelle? Does she know you down here?" And you'd have to go back. If you were able to come down, you would usually have a note if you come down for something specific.
Okay.
So yeah, so it was considered a rite of passage. By the time you got 18, you got to come down to the Sharp End Business District. So that's one story. I believe that is truly the one. If you come down to Walnut Street, if you notice, there is a ball that is the ball that's there. You'll see a ball that's kind of goes from one side to the other. And if you look at it, you will see a fedora. There's the shape of a fedora if you look at it, because that was kind of the thing that men wear their fedoras. Now the second story, some people don't like this story.
Oh, okay.
So the second story is that so when you came down Walnut Street, Providence did not exist until like around Urban Renewal when they redid everything and then they made it Providence. I think that used to be like 3rd Street, I think. So when you came down even Walnut Street, across this, when this was the Sharp End where the post office sits now, there was a building, and underneath the building was shops and stuff, but on the top were apartments where people lived. And so the story goes that you would go, when you would come around, you would go around to make a sharp left to go around into an alley that allowed you to get to your apartment. So some people say it was you make a sharp end. Now the last story, which people do not like.
Okay.
Some people say sometimes, you get down here and on a Saturday night and folks get to getting in their juices and they get a little libation and they get a little happy. And, and sometimes, folks get to talking stuff. There's the story that, people would pull out their switchblade and sometimes they will fight. So again, the Sharp End. That is, I'm just giving you context. Now, you believe what you want. However, I believe, as Miss Barbara Howell, who is the matriarch of the history of the Sharp End, who I literally sit at her feet and have learned so much about the Sharp End, because, like I said, I do a lot of tours for schools and for different organizations. And so I'm constantly sitting with her talking. I learn something from her every day. So those are the 3 stories. However, Miss Barbara will tell you, and I believe it to be true, it really was about people dressed really sharp. And so that's kind of got its name, the Sharp End.
Okay, well, let me tell you, we've had a couple of live viewers. I just want to thank you for tuning in, and also let you know that if you want to throw a couple questions in the chat, we will definitely address them while we're live. I want to was the first time that I met Miss Annelle Whitt, and was new to town. Rich community of just Black people doing it. Black people doing it. And this is one of them. So she walks in and she says, I said, well, tell me a little bit about your foundation, because I had a card on my desk that had everything she was doing. And she said, well, it's going to be the next Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And in my heart and my mind, I didn't doubt her for a moment. So I can't wait to see it. I did not doubt her for a moment. Her presence was powerful and strong. And it started me down a path of realizing not only who she was, but who her husband was. Because I tell a lot of people that this is where I started my journey. This was one of my first jobs. This was his office, was it not?
Yeah, it was. So my husband was the first supplier diversity person for the city of Columbia. And he did it as a consultant. So, and so, like I said, what he did was help to develop minority women-owned business. That was his joy. That was his heart. Well, he started in honor of the Sharp. So it goes back to the story about, so the city said, we're going to do this. You need to go back and you're going to have to address some of the harms that was done as a result of urban renewal, that many businesses were destroyed. You took out the nucleus of the Black business district here, and there are descendants of those folks who are still here. So as a result of that, that's how the Sharp End Business District recognition came about, with the first the first plaque, not a plaque, but the first sign here, which is in front of the Sharp End. So that was to dedicate to the Sharp End and to pay homage and respect to a thriving Black business district here. and to try to start to heal some of the harm and some of the hurt that was done. And so once that was done, then folks want to talk about, well, what do we do about that? There's a very, very rich African American history here. So then the next project was to start the African American Heritage Trail plaques. And they're not really called plaques. They're really large.
Planker, maybe?
I can't think of the word. I'm drawing a blank.
Okay.
But they're large
site markers.
Markers. Yes, they're markers.
They're site markers.
See, that's the age kicking in, girl.
No. Listen.
Like a child. The markers. Take your moment, girl. So then it was the markers. So the first marker was the sharp end marker that's in front of ready. So now, and to pay homage to that, my husband started a sharp end development fund.
Yes.
He started it with his own money and then raised money, and it was called Seed Grants, Sharp End Entrepreneur Development Seed Grants. And the purpose of that was, as minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses were getting started, he would provide them grants. Now, he didn't give cash. He would buy the items that you needed to make sure that you can generate revenue. And where that came from, it wasn't a matter of that he didn't trust people with the money, but we were long-time entrepreneurs. And so my husband was retired. In 98, he's, instead of taking another promotion, he said, I don't want to be a woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Okay, and you were you might have dabbled in law.
I got my law degree, yes. And then I went into insurance, and so when I met him, I was in insurance, an executive in insurance, but I also had a little side hustle as a consultant because my goal was to eventually have my own business. The way story goes, had a little gathering at my home for Black-owned business owners in St. Louis. I lived in St. Louis at the time. My girlfriend, who worked out Southwest Bell at the time, no longer Southwest Bell.
Oh, I remember that. Yes,
she was a buyer. Yeah, she was a buyer. So she called and said, "Hey, a gentleman came in today. He just started his own business. He was trying to get some sales from her, and says I invited him to the gathering." And I said, "The network." It was like a networking for minority-owned businesses. Okay. So I said, "Cool, no problem." So, and
the story begins.
And so I opened the door, and here is this fine Black man. I mean, fine. And so I said, So I go to my girlfriend because
got to make sure she doesn't have anything.
Future kinship, you know what I'm saying?
Never heard it that way.
No, child. So I said, what's up with the homeboy? And she says, "Oh no, I just invited him." I said, "Okay." Damn. We would have been married 33 years before my husband transitioned. And one of the things I asked my husband years later, I said, did you know I was the one? He says, well, I knew that something was going to happen. I'm not quite sure, because he said, first of all, I thought you were a lot younger than even you were. My husband was 11 years older than me. And he thought I was even younger than what I was.
And that scared him.
So, but a year later, we was married. Hello, somebody.
How about that?
Kids. But anyway, so that's how we got started. He was an entrepreneur. So I started that journey with him. So we started off with a business as Polycom distributor. We were the largest Polycom distributor in North America, which kind of sounds bigger than what it is. But like we had a company in Mississauga, Canada. We had an office in Overland Park, Kansas, and we had our home office in St. Louis, Missouri. Okay. So we have had the highs and lows of being a minority-owned business and all the things. Everything from we closed a $5 million deal, and when we look at the numbers, we had $250,000 in operating capital, and I was like, "Oh no, let's don't do it. We can pay the attorneys," and he was like, "We too far in." So we had the business highs and lows. We had partners, and so we've been through it all, being very successful, and then having to file bankruptcy. A business bankruptcy. I tell people the story. One of the things that I do a workshop called "When Your Partner is Your Partner in and Out of the Bedroom."
This is the $30,000 story.
Child, please.
Woo!
Because so this is
love. This is the story about love right now. Love.
And I continue with this. What I do, I love. So my husband, I give him my American Express card. I give him an American Express card. It was my card, but I give him one. I don't know. So one day I'm looking at my bill, $30,000. He had put $30,000 to buy product for the business, and didn't even ask me. And I'm like, now, and
Ooh, that's a good man.
that's a good
That you continued
I
on.
was hot. Now,
I
we
know
had,
you
we had
were.
discussions, however, but I talk about the lesson learned from that. First of all, entrepreneurs do not think like regular folks.
No, we don't.
I mean, and that's why you always have to have somebody that is
big.
going to say, okay, I hear you, but listen, we ain't gonna lose everything. We ain't gonna spend everything. We got through that, it all worked out, and it was a lesson learned that, okay, because I am your wife and you're my husband, you just can't do anything you want to do.
That's why we have a whole class about it now.
We do have a no class about it. We just can't do what you want to do because what you do affects the family.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, when my husband was starting a business, I made enough money that I could carry the load. And we talk about that too, that, that's when you have a partnership, as much as I believe in you, but this comes a time when you're like, come on now, bro. We've been doing this a while now and we ain't making no money. And as much as you support them because you're human.
Yes.
You're human. And as progressive as people think I am, I'm pretty much traditional.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty traditional woman in many ways. And so we got through all of that, and it was not always easy. There was times that I felt resentful. I felt like, why do I have to keep doing this and da 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 da. But we had the successes and we had the not so much successes. But we grew. The business grew. I learned so much from him. We grew as a family. My sons grew up not knowing that people work for anybody else. Our kids grew up. We have 6 kids. We're a blended family. So he has 4 from his first marriage, and then we have 2. But we raised our kids. They brothers and sisters to this day.
Right.
They are brothers and sisters. And so, yeah.
I just want to touch on the entrepreneurial mindset is completely different.
Yes.
Let me tell you this. We step out on faith. We are impulse actors. But here's the best part. An entrepreneur sees a bigger picture. Yes. And if you don't see that bigger picture, then you need to rethink what you're doing. And that bigger picture says, even when times are hard, even 30,000. Now, I don't know if I can do all that. I really don't. No, but we'll cross that. Hopefully, hey, you bring that bridge over here, and I'm not coming to your town. Regardless, our mindset is different because we see that bigger picture, and we're big picture thinkers. But at the same time, too, I always keep in my mind I could be one step away from success and never know it.
Right.
And that's what keeps fueling us.
Well, see, that's one of the things that I get a question all the time from people. So I'm like 30 years in the corporate world and another 33, like 35 years as a business owner with my husband. Because eventually the business grew to the point where I left my corporate job and came and worked in the business. So I did the HR. My corporate background is in insurance. So I came and did the HR, and it was wonderful working with him. And it was really nice because we play to our strengths. And so oftentimes people didn't even know that we were married because at business wise, that only lasted for a month. I was well, this is what it lasted for a month.
Yeah.
So because I want to be not viewed as I'm only here because he's my husband. I use my maiden name. And he said, my husband was always so cool about it. He just said, well, why? He just said, well, why do you want to do that? And I said, well, I just want to be independent. He said, okay, cool. It's like when we got married, I was going to hyphenate my name, and he says, well, why do you want to hyphenate your name? It was never like, well, why do you want to do that? And then I thought about it. I said, that would be a really long name. I'm just going to use Whitt. And so because actually in my first marriage, I hyphenated my name. It was a big problem because my name was so long. It was not worth it. So he kind of thinks I did it because he did.
Well, let me tell you, this woman is my mentor, and she told me a story too about being in the bed, just reading a magazine or doing something. And he said, I think it's time for you to want to be a wife now.
So I was very independent. I mean, I went to law. I'm usually undergrad. I went to law school.
Thanks for watching live. See ya. Yeah.
And so I had a really good career. I was doing my thing. One night, and he looks over at me and he says, I think you're finally used to be. After 10 years. And I looked at him and I felt bad because I was like, I love you. And I said, I love you. He said, oh, I know you love me. And I felt like he didn't think it love, but then I thought about it and I realized
he was
he was
complimenting you.
saying, you know, you're with me because you want to be with me. Think about the $30,000 and all the stuff, you know, a blended family, which ain't always easy. I mean, we've been through the whole gamut. I mean, we've been through, and I think later on I realized that was really a compliment.
It was.
Yeah, it was really a compliment. So
this hyphenate woman.
This hyphenate woman.
This, I want to use my maiden name.
But it was it, you know, but it, again, and that's kind of the things. This is what I love about our foundation and the workshops we do. We give you all the book stuff, but we also give you the practical, real deal of what it really takes to be in the business.
Yeah.
Something you said earlier about one of the questions I get a lot is, when do I know it's time to give up? When do I know? Because it can be, trust me, there were times when that $30,000, when he one day told me we're gonna use the house for collateral for HBA loan, and I said, no, we not.
That's right.
No, we not. Don't use your, I'm not a believer in using your home and stuff like that.
Okay.
Because other folks that don't look like us don't have to do that.
They surely don't.
So, you know, I'm not a believer in that. So that was one time I was like, no, we're not doing that. So let's figure out another way. And you have to have someone. One thing my husband used to do all the time too is when people ask him to mentor them, he would ask them, "Are you married? And do you have a partner?" He said, "I'm not talking about a boyfriend or girlfriend. I'm talking about, do you have a partner? Do you have a husband or wife?" If the answer was yes, he would say, "Then I want to talk to both of you."
That's right.
Because, and oftentimes I would be in some of those mentoring sessions with him because, you know, it's one thing. It may sound cute. We're going to have this business and, you know, he's going to carry the load or she's going to carry the load. That may sound cute when you're all high on the business you want. But when the money gets funny and when you're trying to figure out payroll or when you're trying to determine if you're going to pay rent versus whatever, you know, and you dip in here, you know, it can be hairy. And so, and some marriages don't make it. Some partnerships don't make it. So one of the things he would always do would be talking to Bill, because he would tell people, in order to have a business, he said, you got to learn how to empty trash cans because you're going to be doing everything.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. Long nights and all that. The thing that I was very blessed with is my husband. I never felt, nor our kids ever felt, that we were second.
Yeah.
Like we had our kids in their little honey. They was emptying garbage cans and back in the warehouse. And so they grew up thinking that, you know, you have your own business. That's all they knew. My son, one of my sons is an entrepreneur. He's also executive director of a foundation. Phenomenal. My other son is a professional ball player. So, but they
shout out team.
He's with the Warriors.
There we go, Golden State.
He's with their G, which is their Santa Cruz.
Okay.
But he's actually got injured, so he's in the process of healing. So, but you know, hey, God got him.
He surely does.
So anyway, it's really important when I mentor people, I ask the same question because it's a thing and it's not going to be easy. And so going back to what I was saying about when people ask me all the time, well, when do you know when it's time to quit? I can't answer that for you.
Well, sometimes you need to have tough conversations as well. Like if you're not bringing any money in, and this is, I mean, someone had to tell me too, like, Sarita, you know, you're spending up all your money. You have all these ambitions and dreams. You need a part-time job.
Yeah.
And then they thought they were like, I'm sorry, I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Hey, listen, I can suck it up and realize you got something there.
Right.
This hasn't taken off yet,
but
I still need to make sure that, you know, so you got to find, this is my mentor, but she can't tell me that, hey, Sarita, but she can point out the writing on the wall.
Right.
And then you have to make that decision and realize this too. That doesn't mean your idea is bad.
Right.
That doesn't mean that business can't take off at a later time. You just have to make sure that you're meeting.
You know what? My husband had a friend of ours. It was a white guy, and he every time I looked around, he had some kind of business until he finally became very successful. And one night we were talking, and James said, "Well, how did you finally figure out which was the one that was working?" He said, "I just threw SHIT against the wall and saw what stick." Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes you just try to figure out what it is. However, like I tell people, think I'm a risk taker. I'm not. Not my nature to be a risk taker. And they're like, but you doing it? No, I'm not a risk taker. What I am, I am a thoughtful decision maker.
Strategic.
I'm strategic.
Strategic. And guess what?
And that's the difference.
People don't know that there is a quality of just being you've got to hone it. You've got to realize this can help me to get this done. So I need to sit down and talk with this person. Exactly. Sometimes you have to think 10, 15 steps ahead. Like, this is what's going to happen in 6 months if I do these things. And that man that was throwing all that against the wall, in the meantime, I'm sure he had to find a job.
But this is the other thing. Not only did he have a side hustle, but also it was strategic. Even though he was throwing stuff against the wall, he was strategic about what he was throwing.
Yeah.
Some of the things, one of the reasons why a lot of business don't take off is because we don't want to sit down and do our homework before we begin. It's great to have an idea.
Yeah.
But have you done your market research? Have you figured out, because there'd be 15 people doing what you're doing. So what's going to make you different?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times we don't do the work and the homework to figure out what market am I going to enter? When is the right time? What makes me different? Where's the money going to come from? All those things. Where am I going to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? I mean, it's just like with our foundation. We took a complete year to put the legal entity together and all these things, going back, looking at what my husband had done, what he wanted to do. And then we launched little bit by little. And one of the things that my husband taught me was that, and he did it even with the sharp end, like when the first sharp end marker went up. He did that first. People, well, let's do the African American channel. He said, nope, we're going to do one thing at a time. So they got the sharp end marker was the first one. Then they moved over to the African American trail. And it's the same thing in business. Even like not right now with our foundation. There are times that some means we want to do this, 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 and this. Like, nope, we're going to do one thing at a time. Because one of the things that is really important, and it's to honor my husband, is that if we're going to do something, we're going to do it right or we're not going to do it. One of the things that I honor as an African American foundation owner, supporting African American and minority owned and women owned businesses, they deserve the best.
That's right.
They deserve the best. They deserve quality. So if we're going to put our name on it and we're going to do it right. We're going to do it correctly, or we're not going to do it. We're not going to have our name to junk. Because I can't expect you to do the best you can if I'm not giving you my best.
Absolutely.
Because that's what happens sometimes, is that your brand is the most important thing you got. And like I tell people, we make brand so complicated. Brand is not complicated.
It is.
Do a workshop in. Workshop is simply this. Like right now, for those of you who are watching this, you probably in your mind have some words come to your mind now, haven't heard me and haven't seen me. That's brand.
Yeah. And she's well dressed. She's put together. She's always on.
Right. I'm giving you those words that you're going to say, because how I present myself, how I talk, and all those. That's simply what brand is. It's the word that comes to folks' minds when they see you and when they hear you. And so you're in control of that.
Absolutely. And let me tell you something else that her foundation does, that when you fill out that application for a seed grant, they want a business plan. So if you want to start a business, you've got to, without a plan, you plan to fail. So you got to have that business plan. You all have some projections together.
Right.
So, and even to step to the table, they're showing you, like, just to apply for this grant, these are the things you're going to need. Right. And I really like that. You've given out how much money over the last 3 years?
So we've given out to date, and if we added the money last night, we've given out now over $160,000. We have raised over, if I add last night, because on our website, the executive director has not added the money. So I say we have now raised $260,000. We've given out $160,000.
And your big capital campaign is coming.
Big capital campaign is so first of all, please, we exist to help folks. We raise money, and we are a private foundation, which simply means that we are private, means that we are run by our majority people on our board. We have the deciding vote as family because of the number that's on the board. And the reason that we do that is because so we have a little bit more leeway of how and what we can do as a private foundation versus a public. And we don't want anybody dictating to us and we still have to follow all the rules and regulations federally and everything else. So it's nothing about that, but it does allow us to have a little more say in how and what we want to do in terms of the foundation.
Yeah.
Our foundation is created to support minority and women-owned businesses.
And it's your husband's name. It's his legacy.
And it's his legacy.
Yeah.
So if you go to our website, www.jawedf, you can go to our website. You'll find out the history of our foundation. It tells you upcoming events that we have, the workshops we did. Now, our workshops are free.
Mm-hmm. That's a blessing.
Our workshops are free because it doesn't matter. We can give you grants, but if you don't have the training that you need to continue to grow and enhance yourself as a business owner, then that's kind of just.
And let me interject.
Yeah.
If you want your business to take off, if you really care about what you're doing, strength and a multitude of advisors.
Mhm.
They've been saying that since the Bible. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's another thing. We can't always pay out of pocket. We can't pay for a woman that's a consultant, a former lawyer. I mean, maybe you're sitting a little bit more pretty than I am, but I couldn't afford to pay for those things to get my business going. So I'm going to tell you, whatever city you're in, whatever state you're in, you want to start something, start looking for people who are doing similar things. Start looking for those free workshops. And I cannot stress this enough. She even spoke to her husband being a mentor. This is my mentor. Get someone that you look up to, that you want what they have, and you know that whatever they tell you is going to be that sage wisdom. Be willing to have those tough conversations with someone, because she might not be able to tell someone when it's time to go, but someone that knows you very intimately. But stay away from family, because family sometimes will not see your vision. Would you agree?
I think you have to be, that could be family, that could be with anybody.
That's true. Friends too.
It's a couple of things. First of all, I'm not going to try to get advice for, let's say if I'm trying to learn how to make a car, I'm not going to get advice for somebody who don't even know how to drive.
True.
So whoever you get, make sure they are successful in the things that they're doing that you want advice on. Everybody can't be a mentor. And I'm going to tell you something. You have to learn the difference between a mentor and somebody who is your mentor and somebody who is your support person. Which was the word again? I'm losing the word. It's a mentor and it'll come to me.
Okay.
But there's a difference. So a mentor is the person who tells you you're good, you're bad, and you're ugly.
That's right.
You know, and the other person, which is an S, and I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on it, but the other person plays the role of, they're the person that when you're in the room. And I used it a lot for the corporate world because it happened a lot in the corporate world. Your sponsor.
Okay.
There's a difference between your mentor and your sponsor. I used it a lot in the corporate world. And so in the corporate world, when I mentored people, I was your mentor. I'm your mentor. I'm going to tell you you're good and bad, you're ugly. I'm going to tell you the things that are keeping you from getting to the next level.
Yeah.
That's what your mentor does. Your mentor knows you're good, bad, you're ugly. Your sponsor doesn't need to know that. Your sponsor is your mentor's job is to make sure that there's no buts or very few buts when somebody brings your name up. So for example, oftentimes in the corporate world, promotions don't happen in front of you. They happen behind closed doors. Your mentor's job is to make sure that when your name comes up behind closed doors, that there's no but. And if a but comes up, it's the job of your sponsor who is in the room to say, oh, the but comes up. You know, Annelle would be great at job, but she seems a lot aggressive. It seems aggressive. Your sponsor, no, it's not that Annelle's aggressive. She's a taskmaster. She's very thorough. So you see the difference?
So both of them advocate for you.
Both of them advocate for you,
but in different ways.
Your sponsor is the one that can do the moving and shaking.
Okay, and you know what?
And can open the doors. Your mentor is the one to prepare you for when the doors get ready to be open.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
I really do. And I feel like this too. When we want to do something, it's easy to want to strike out on your own, to feel like and that don't do it on your own. You don't have to.
Yeah. But do you agree? I think, you know what? I'm gonna be honest with y'all.
Sure, be honest.
Being an entrepreneur is lonely. It's lonely. It's scary. It's all that, but it's also rewarding. It's joyful, and it's something about doing your own thing, being your own boss, as some people say. And the truth of the matter is, see, people forget that in our country, the majority of the employees are small businesses. They're not large corporations.
Yeah.
Small businesses kind of run this country in terms of the most and who they employ and the economic foundation.
Yeah.
So small business and like minority and women-owned businesses, some of the fastest growing since 2021.
We are
some of the fastest growing.
We are.
So if you know that's the case, then to us, there was an opportunity. There was an opportunity to help them be successful.
Absolutely.
You know, so that was an opportunity to, how can we use the knowledge and the skills we have to help companies grow? Because our ultimate goal is to enhance and increase generational wealth. Our ultimate goal is to reduce the wealth and income gap disparity that is a result of gender and race, and to ultimately enhance generational wealth. Our foundation, when I'm long and gone, my sons will run it. When they're long and gone, my grandchildren will run it. Yeah. And when I'm long and gone, their great grandchildren will run it. So that in terms of continues generationally, but it also that we are continue to increase and enhance generational wealth as well.
Amen. Yeah. Well, I think that is all of it in a nutshell. However, before I let this woman go, I just want to tell you that this is one of the most impressive people that I've ever met in my life. And she went somewhere recently that I can't say it unless I say it like this. She went to Dubai. Yes,
I had
Dubai.
an opportunity to go to Dubai a few months ago with a friend of mine. It was phenomenal.
Yes.
If you ever get an opportunity to definitely do that. One thing that became really clear, we clearly are. We say we're a global economy. We are. We really are. I mean, when you go to that country and I've been in China too, so I see the same thing. Like what hit me when I went in the airports, it would be like I could have been in LA airport. I could have been in San Francisco airport. I could have been in any big city airport. I mean, that's how, in terms of when you make me realize, wow, we're so connected in terms of where we are as a country. So I had that was a blessing. So I had an opportunity to do that.
Oh my gosh, Dubai. But if you picked up anything from what she's told us, it can be lonely. Find people that will support you. Find people that will speak good about you when you are not in the room. And you know what? There's just strength in knowing that there's a community, and there's a community of entrepreneurs. Please go to her website, JAWEDF.org. Yes. And you might see me. You might see me on there.
And also on social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
James and Annelle Whitt Entrepreneurship.
So follow us. Like and share us, that helps us continue to grow. We want to, continue to grow so that we can continue to help more and more minority and women-owned businesses.
Yes, and please do not forget about the capital campaign.
Yes.
Look on the website. Donate. Donate. Thank you so much.